Should immigrants living in the country illegally have driver's licenses? I'm Adrienne Pedersen, today on Upfront. The immigrant community is pushing hard for state-issued licenses. Next, why they say it's important, and the march in Madison they're planning on Wednesday. Plus, Democrats plan to expand Medicaid. Can they win over a Republican-led legislature? And the state of the state parks.
They're jewels. In many of them, it's beautiful.
How self-funded state parks are working in Wisconsin. And the president visits Green Bay.
Hello, Green Bay. Thank you.
Taking on the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Upfront with your host, Adrienne Pedersen.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm Adrienne Pedersen, and this is Upfront. Wednesday could be a big day at the state capitol. Immigrant rights groups are organizing their annual Day Without Latinos and Immigrants. It's a general strike and mobilization effort in Madison on May 1st. On Friday, organizers said buses of people from 19 Wisconsin cities will head to the Capitol. Businesses will close and workers will take part in the demonstration. The Day Without Latinos has drawn huge crowds in years past. The big issue this year: driver's licenses for people living in the country illegally. Wisconsin used to issue those licenses regardless of immigration status, but that stopped in 2007. In his budget, Governor Evers proposed bringing it back. We're talking now with Christine Newman-Ortiz, the executive director of Voces de la Frontera in Milwaukee. Thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
We want to start with the issue of the driver's licenses. I know that you think this would make it safer for everyone. Why?
Regardless of what anyone thinks about immigration, it is logical and proven that the more people you have on the road that have been tested for their driving skills, have passed a vision test, know the rules of the road, have access to insurance, makes for much safer roads, of which everyone benefits, oneself, the people you love. It's something that saves lives and it reduces accidents. So that is at the bottom. That's the most important thing for everybody.
I know that you've heard the argument against this, that it's enabling and incentivizing people who are here breaking the law. What's your response to that?
First of all, people don't want to be breaking the law in terms of driving without a license. So we can help people drive legally and safely by restoring driver's licenses. Secondly, in other states where they had denied driver's licenses for immigrants who lack a social security number, it didn't change anything about the immigration system. That is a federal issue, but what it does do is a couple of things. One is what we just talked about, but secondly is that we also have to recognize that immigrants are good for Wisconsin and they're good for this country. In Wisconsin, and that's why we do a Day Without Latinos and Immigrants. Why? Because it's about recognizing the important economic contributions that immigrants make to Wisconsin that we all benefit from. As an example, the dairy industry, which is our signature state industry and provides many important jobs for us, even as a chain of jobs, 80% of that is immigrants. And who right now, because of a lack of a driver's license, there's a really severe labor shortage. And this is just adding to a lot of the small farm closures and even hurting the larger ones, and as well as even just as consumers. And so immigrants are necessary for many jobs.
And I've heard people say, if you're not a citizen, why should you get that right?
Because right now, we have a problem with our federal immigration system. So people do need a path to citizenship. But we have seen that for many reasons, we have not been able to get the kind of change that is necessary to create a legal avenue. People want to have legal paths. We have a broken federal immigration system that's kept millions of families in the shadows, every day living in fear that their mother, their father, their brother, their sister will be picked up by immigration agents. incarcerated and deported.
And I want to talk about the Day Without Latinos and Immigrants. So that's coming up on Wednesday in Madison. You're expecting a big turnout. How many people, how many businesses will be closed?
So we have had always some of the largest marches, and this is a community-wide strike, which I think is important to really appreciate. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. People have made big sacrifices to be there. They've closed their business. As of yesterday, we had over 50. As of the end of today, we'll have over 80. Traditionally, we've had between 100 and 200 small businesses close. The majority of those are immigrant-owned or depend on immigrants as consumers, or in some cases are just in solidarity with immigrants and refugee families and are closing to show that we're not going to be divided by race, by ethnicity, and we're going to stand together.
And what will it look like in Madison?
So the program starts at 11 a.m. on the State Street side of the Capitol. So we'll have a program with music and speakers there, and it really is to showcase the diversity of support that's out there, from rural dairy farmers, law enforcement, to urban immigrant families.
You want to make this bipartisan, you said.
Yes, this has to be a bipartisan solution, and I think that's part of, at the federal level, what's really held us back from a more profound fix to the problem.
So you're welcoming people from both parties to get in on it?
Absolutely, and we really want to build out a coalition that really, and it's there, the support is there. There is bipartisan support there, and given the urgency of the times to restore driver's licenses for immigrants, there is this opportunity to get that done this year. But we do believe that change happens from below, and that each and every one of us has the ability to make a difference.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Well, do you think the state should be issuing driver's licenses to people in the country illegally? You can take our Facebook poll on that question. You'll find that by liking the Upfront Facebook page, and please share it with your friends too. We asked a top Republican for a response. State Representative John Nygren, who co-chairs the Joint Committee on Finance, said Congress needs to act on illegal immigration, and most states do not allow undocumented immigrants to acquire driver's licenses. He said he opposes including this non-fiscal policy item in the budget. Coming up, state Democrats plan for expanded health care coverage. Can they get Republicans on board with this? Plus, a national measles outbreak. No confirmed cases in Wisconsin yet. We'll hear what the state is doing to stay on top of it. And later, people love their Wisconsin state parks. We'll see how self-funding of parks is going and learn why there could be a little more money in the park's future.
Upfront, brought to you by the American Transmission Company.
Welcome back to Upfront. Wisconsin Democrats are pushing to expand health care coverage to more people. Governor Evers wants to cover an additional 82,000 low-income Wisconsin residents. He would do this by taking dollars available through the Federal Affordable Care Act. Here's how it would work under Evers' plan. The governor would expand Badger Care Plus to cover people making 138% of the federal poverty level. So here's what that means. That's $17,236 a year. State Republicans counter, they already expanded coverage to people making up to 100% of the federal poverty level. That's $12,490 a year. The Republican plan did not expand up to the point that federal ACA dollars became available to the state. The governor says his plan would free up millions of dollars to be used for other things like new health care initiatives. So we're talking more about the governor's plan with Andrea Palm, Secretary of the Department of Health Services. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Governor Evers came on the show. He said he's confident that Medicaid expansion will eventually go through. I was in touch with Robin Voss's office today. He says that this is still a non-starter for Republicans. So how do you convince Republicans this is the right thing to do?
So I think there's a number of things that are happening here that make me more optimistic the longer the governor's budget is out and available for people to look at. I think we are really trying to have a new conversation, and a governor who has put on paper what happens when you save $324.5 million and draw down $1.6 billion in new federal money, what kind of investments you can make in healthcare, long-term care, behavioral health, dental access, and I think that those conversations, once you see in black and white what you can do with investments, have opened up opportunities to move stakeholders, to move legislators to get to yes on a budget that expands the Medicaid program to benefit the entire state of Wisconsin.
But even if you get voters on board, because you've seen the most recent Marquette Law School poll, 70% of people asked said that the state should accept federal funds to expand Medicaid coverage. But even so, that doesn't necessarily mean that Republicans will go for it.
I'm hoping that they will listen to their local constituents, and not just their voters, but local counties, local electeds, the providers in their communities, others who understand and can see how, when that money goes back to local communities, that they benefit, that the state benefits, that the economy benefits in ways that allow us to get to yes.
And I understand that some of that money will be used for behavioral health. You mentioned that, as well as the opioid crisis. Could you give us any specifics?
Sure. So I think one of the things that we think is really important about these investments is starting to fill some of the gaps in access. Expanding the coverage to those folks is a critical piece of this, but then driving those investments to get at some of the edges that are starting to fray in the system are really important things to do. And doubling down on the work that the legislature and the former administration did on opioids and substance abuse disorders is something that we think is a really important thing to do. And so we improve reimbursement rates to providers in the behavioral health space, including psychiatrists. We think people being able to access treatment is part of how we deal with this crisis. We use some money to create what we call a hub and spoke model that would allow 2 rural and 1 urban communities to pilot this particular model that wraps behavioral health treatment into the healthcare system in a more integrated way.
I'm hearing from Republicans that one of the arguments is that taking money from the federal government means that they could stop that funding and then Wisconsin taxpayers would be on the hook. What's your response to that?
I spent the 20 years before I came here in D.C., and particularly the last 10 years, since the enactment of the Affordable Care Act, there's been a lot of talk about rolling it back, about repealing it, about taking it to court. And at every juncture, the Affordable Care Act has stood. It is the law of the land. 37 other states have expanded access to Medicaid. 75 million people in this country rely on Medicaid for their affordable, high-quality coverage. I do not see a world in which the United States Congress picks a fight with 75 million Americans. And so I think that it is in some ways an easy excuse for why we shouldn't do this in the state of Wisconsin.
Do you think it's an ideological battle, or what's going on here?
I think that there are still people who anything associated with the Affordable Care Act is lumped in with how they feel about Obamacare more broadly. And so I think that there is some of this conversation that is about being frozen in time about Obamacare.
Let's switch gears a little bit. There's a measles outbreak happening right now. Last I saw, there are 695 people infected with measles, the highest rate since the year 2000.
Yep.
How has Wisconsin avoided this so far?
I just want to say I really appreciate you asking this question, because raising awareness about the opportunity that we have to protect our citizens is really important public health information. It is a highly contagious disease. 9 in 10 people who are not immune, either through vaccination or otherwise immune, will get the disease if they're in contact with it. And so it's a plane ride away. It's a kid going to summer camp and coming home who's been exposed. There are lots of ways where if you live in a community that does not have a high vaccination rate, you are much more at risk for contracting the disease. So I think we are very focused at the Department of Health Services with our county and local public health partners to chase suspected cases, to make sure if we get one here that we are on it, and that we are able to track to people that they've been in contact with, so we can get vaccinations, so that we can get antivirals, so that we can get to a place where we are stopping transmission.
Is there a high vaccination rate here in Wisconsin?
So our statewide average of 2-year-olds, which is, your first dose, is about 89%, but there are some counties that are a little higher, some counties that are lower.
So would you say that's the reason why Wisconsin has avoided this so far?
Well, what we know about trying to prevent spread is that you need a community rate of about 95%. So we absolutely have some work to do to truly protect our communities, and it is why I appreciate the question, because people who are not vaccinated, they should check their kids' records, they should get them up to date if they're not vaccinated, and adults should do the same. The way we protect our communities is through vaccination, and we need to be concerned about folks who are sick, who are immunocompromised, and kids who are more susceptible to the negative consequences of infectious diseases like this, and vaccination is the way to protect them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
President Trump rallied Republicans in Green Bay last night.
And there's no place I'd rather be than right here in America's heartland, right?
His campaign says his rally at the Resch Center was his 18th in Wisconsin since 2015. Democratic candidates are visiting Wisconsin too. New Jersey Senator Cory Booker attended a gun violence event in Milwaukee in his first trip to Wisconsin as a presidential candidate. Booker said Wisconsin is essential to Democrats' hopes of winning back the White House. Our editorial partner, WisPolitics.com, has the story of both the president and Booker's visits on their election blog at WisPolitics.com. Next on Up Front, we'll go to the park, a state park, to see how self-funding is working and why a little more money could be coming. Wisconsin is home to 49 state parks. In his budget, Governor Evers proposed pouring $2.8 million into state parks while keeping them self-funded. So what will that money mean? I'm asking, what is the state of our state parks?
A lot of Wisconsin people, especially, really value state parks. Again, they're jewels. Many of them are just beautiful.
It'd be tough, if not impossible, to find someone who knows more about Aztalan State Park than Bob Birmingham.
Natives took branches and wove them in between the logs.
He's the executive director of the Friends of Aztalan State Park, and today he's playing tour guide for us. The Friends groups across Wisconsin are made up of volunteers who support the state parks. Birmingham says this park, which is in the town of Aztalan next to Lake Mills, is where Native Americans started Wisconsin's first town in 1050 A.D.
We're getting people from all over the country, but we also have a lot of international visitors.
But this visitor is local. Jacob Arndt comes 2 or 3 times a week with his dog, Riley.
It's beautiful out here. It's absolutely beautiful.
Arndt says the more money for parks, the better. In 2015, Governor Walker made state parks self-sufficient, meaning parks no longer receive state tax money. The Friends of Wisconsin State Parks group supports that model.